Welcome back to Better Than I Deserve. We have a late night special tonight, as you can see, but it's not actually all that special. It's just a day that got away, and now it's a late night and a full moon, so nothing crazier to do on a full moon than do some freeze drying. So we had a ton of backlogged things in our freezer, actually like almost 8 trays of things. So I kind of had to do the FIFO, first in, first out, and pick the things that needed to be done first. We have fruit and produce and meals and a family favorite that we have yet to do. So we will move over to the freeze dryer to get it cooled down, and I will show you all the food before it goes in for the cycle in this video. Here's all the food that's going to be going in today. As you can see, some things that we've done before and some new things. We'll start with the stuff we've done. This top tray and this end tray here, and I know not everything's really in frame, but we have Granny Smith apples dusted with cinnamon, always a favorite and a good snack to have on hand. Shared with that, we have diced strawberries, nothing on them, just plain. And on this tray at the bottom, there are sliced bananas. So all things that we have done before and had great outcomes with. The next tray we have is, again, another thing that we have done is spaghetti. We have spaghetti quite often, and I love having leftovers and banking them for freeze drying. It's just a nice thing to have on hand, and from our taste test that we did a while back, it was delicious. So the difference this time is, since I had not combined everything right off the bat, we had extra sauce. So my intention with that is to keep that upstairs in our pantry so I can break out a piece and, you know, add some water, reconstitute, rehydrate that for Philson if he wants just a little bit of spaghetti. Cook up some noodles separately and then add that to it, and it's perfect. I can make it the consistency that, you know, I want if he wants it a little bit more watery versus like thicker. So that should be a nice thing that we have not done before, but I look forward to trying it. And on here were some additional mushrooms that we had, so always good to have those on hand, and they're great for gravy or just, you know, adding to spaghetti at the last minute. They rehydrate really quickly, so a very nice addition. And our final tray is the one I'm pretty excited about this time, and I'm calling it our guacamole tray. We have frozen diced avocados. We had several avocados, and if you have experience with them, they are not ready, and then it's too late. So I preemptively went ahead and prepared them for this tray and wanted to continue on. So we are getting tons of tomatoes from our CSA, so I had set some aside and chopped those up, and we did tomatoes, I believe, in our last video, and they turned out great. I'm not the biggest tomato fan, but when it comes to cooking with them, they're always delicious. And although this has a purpose, the other ones we have already used to kind of pump up other recipes, so it's been going great. I went ahead and then got a red onion to chop up, and always brings a delicious flavor to guacamole. And luckily today in our CSA pickup we had cilantro and jalapeno, so I felt that this was a sign to get this done today. And we don't always put jalapeno in our guacamole, especially if Philson is partaking in it with us. It definitely gets a little spicy for him. So even if we don't use them for the guacamole, my other favorite method of using jalapenos is in sourdough. If you have done sourdough before yourself and you have not tried doing any flavored breads, I definitely recommend you do that. Our favorite that we do is a jalapeno cheddar, and you don't want to have a lot of moisture in that, so a lot of times I've used pickled jalapenos and set them out to dry, like on a paper towel for the day before we're about to bake. But these will be moisture free. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that turns out. Obviously, the biggest thing missing from this tray would be lime. My intention is actually to use fresh lime to help rehydrate with water when we go to make the guacamole. So obviously the other addition would be salt, and we'll just add that to taste when it comes time to make the guacamole. But we'll go ahead and get all of the food in. Well, our cycle has begun, and in the few short moments between starting it and repositioning the camera, we have already dropped 22 degrees. I do realize, like I said in our last video, that putting pre-frozen food into the freezer obviously helps drop that temperature, but the machine is very efficient in itself, and like I said, the instructions to it are so easy to follow, and obviously, barring any technical difficulties, this process has been so nice, and I enjoy showing all the things that we're getting to do with, freeze drying food. Obviously, our positive outcomes, our negative outcomes. It's been very fun, and I hope that you're enjoying seeing and maybe even learning and doing some yourself. But I did look and see that tomorrow, unfortunately, is a very rainy day for us, so that means a higher humidity day. Not always the best for freeze drying, good for doing inside activities, but it makes it harder with that high humidity. So obviously, aside from making sure that everything has no moisture, I will be confirming for our spaghetti, because that's probably, well, for sure the heaviest item that we have going in today, and we will probably be addressing the guacamole tray first, as long as it is nice and dry. From the time I brought the food down till the moment it was going into the freeze dryer was about 7 minutes, and the cilantro had defrosted quite a bit already, so I know tomorrow's not going to be any different. So we will be sure to do things as quickly as possible and get things jarred up. Maybe even with that, we might do some oxygen absorbers just to ensure that everything stays dry the way we want it. But until tomorrow, I'm going to go get ready for bed and get a good night's rest, hopefully. But we will check back and see how the food turns out. It's the next day. Actually, it's the next night. Again, we are in a pattern of just doing things late. Unfortunately for us, this time it was really out of our control, and we needed to wait until everything was done. It ended up being a really nice day. There was no rain, and the temperature kind of plummeted. I'm actually wearing long sleeves today, so it would have been nice for that, but we did get out and do a lot, and then I kind of babysat the unit to see when it was going to be done, and it just kind of held on a long time. So we will move over and release that pressure and get in there to make sure everything is moisture free before we turn it off, and we will get to packaging because we don't want it to be late again. Release the pressure. Open the door. And we will quickly check our food to make sure it's nice and dry. We had our apples and strawberries on here, and those, as usual, feel nice and dry. Biggest one was our spaghetti. This was our sauce. And then this was our meal portion. Everything feels really good. So we'll leave that be. And our favorite tray of the video is our guacamole tray. Avocados feel good. That was obviously a big concern for me because they're so thick and we haven't done them before. Here's our cilantro, our onions, jalapenos, and our tomatoes. All feel great, so we will start packaging this one first. I am going to keep the unit on just to help it kind of continue to keep things dry. It's pretty warm in there. It's about 112 degrees. This was, of course, warm coming out, but dry. So we will focus on getting this packaged and then get everything out, and then we will turn the unit off. Okay, so I have a variety of jars and containers here to put all of our stuff in. Obviously, I could mix it all up, but for keeping everything in its individual things, we are going to put them in their own containers. So don't want to waste too much time, so I'm going to start with the jalapenos. I am not going to be trying those. I'm sure they're delicious, but I just don't need that in my life right now tonight. There's a possibility some of these things might get a little mixed up. That is not the end of the world, but there we go. Get that cilantro out. So they feel very light and crispy, almost like a dried onion that you would put on a green bean casserole. I don't really know how much oil that the jalapenos retain when it comes to this. I'm not going to mess with it too much. Obviously don't want to touch my face or eyes, but here are our jalapenos, and not too many. This was 2 whole jalapenos chopped up. We will now move on to our cilantro, since that was probably could have been done first, but it still feels pretty good. And since it's not been humid like it was expected to be, if I come across anything else, I'll just kind of set it aside and add it in later. So a majority of our cilantro is in here. There are a couple pieces mixed in, and I plan on doing those as we get the other things off of the tray. So cilantro. It smells like cilantro. We will go ahead and do our red onions next. They are very light as predicted. Nice and dry. Obviously, the smart thing to do would have like almost compartments. I know that they do make those for trays to divide, so you don't kind of get issues like this where you get things mixing up together. But obviously, I was trying to put a lot on one tray, and that's just kind of what happens. So we'll deal with that mix in a little bit. Here is the red onion. That was 1 whole medium-sized red onion that was chopped up. We'll go ahead and do our avocado next. Very light. Nice and dry. It retained its color pretty well. Obviously, we all know that when it comes to avocado, that they can turn brown pretty quickly. So that looks really nice. I'm not sure how well it's capturing it, but the brown spots that are on it were only from the brown spots that originally were on it when it was being chopped up. Here are our beautiful avocado chunks. Perfect size for this container, and now we can have them whenever we want and them not be all brown. Last container for tomatoes. They turned out great. Our diced tomatoes all jarred up, looking good. And I'll try to sort through the rest of this quickly. So we will go ahead and do our spaghetti, our sauce, and mushrooms next. When it comes to our spaghetti, like I had said before, we are going to be packaging in a Mylar, saving upstairs, as well as the mushrooms in a jar for us to use, you know, as needed. So we will be packaging with an oxygen absorber and sealing that up. It's so nice and dry, it's kind of breaking up, which is fine. I don't think it would have fit in one piece in the bag. And now that I feel more comfortable with that, I'm going to go ahead and write on our bag before it gets too full. our container for our sauce and mushrooms. We've not done this way before, so I think that this will be nice to just chunk those pieces in there. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll make it easier for when I want to rehydrate just some of it. I can take a piece out and, you know, put it in the pan and cook it up, mix it with some noodles, and we have a easy, quick meal that is homemade, just like it was the first time we did it. Before we put our last piece in, we will go ahead and add those mushrooms so they can fall down a little bit. Our last piece goes in. And here's our good mix of spaghetti sauce with meat and then those extra mushrooms we had. I'll go ahead and get the next tray out, and we will do all of our packaging and sealing at the same time. I also went ahead and shut the unit off since we are onto our fruit now and everything else has been moisture free, and I did check it when we initially opened it up. We will continue packaging and it'll be a lot more quiet. One of these days I truly hope that I will use the defrost function so I know how long it takes for the unit to defrost. Obviously, dependent on how long a cycle ran, depends on how much ice builds up. So defrost can definitely take a longer and shorter amount of time, but today is not that day. I'm going to go ahead and label our bag for the apples. And we have apples on this tray and the tray that's left in the freezer. So we will get all of that in here. Very nice and crunchy. I know that I'm lacking on my taste testing right now, but it's more important to me that we just get everything packaged up this time since the dreadful late hour that it is. But I always know that these cinnamon apples are delicious and such a nice addition. Amazingly, we did have some fruit left over from our previous cycle, so I'm just going to mix these strawberries back in with it in pretty much no time flat. These things do get used up, and since we do use them on a regular basis, I'm not worried about mixing different batches. Our strawberries packaged up, and we will be moving on to the last tray. Our other apples mixed with our banana slices, so the apples will go into our Mylar bag and the bananas will go in with our strawberries. Put those in here. Some of them got a little bit beat up, but same flavor, same great taste. Let's see how badly the bananas are stuck on. I'd say if you're not going to use parchment paper, make thicker slices. They'll probably come off easier. These are pretty thin. This was a pretty ripe banana, I'd say. Still edible, but not all of it off, but that's alright. Have all of that done. Now we can move on to sealing our apples and spaghetti. We have our impulse sealer out and our 2 bags of food, spaghetti and our apples, and we have our oxygen absorbers to put in. And obviously, if you have your food dried and sealed correctly, oxygen absorbers are not completely necessary. I'm kind of at the stage where, since we haven't tried a whole lot of things that we have done in Mylar, I like to play it safe, and obviously that could be considered wasteful, but it would just be wasteful to have the food go bad. You know, we're taking it as we go, and as I get a little bit more comfortable to realize what is safely packaged and is lasting and tasting great, then we will make some adjustments. But I went ahead and got our 2 absorbers out so we can reseal our bag. On your impulse sealer, the one that comes with the unit, the scale, you want to make sure it's on a 4 or 5, and we are right between those 2, so we can go ahead and reseal our bag and seal right below the prior line. That light goes on and off. It's all the way across. And then I put it inside another bag just to be safe. The most important part of using your impulse sealer while doing different things is to change your dial. So now we're going to be going to around a 7 or 8. The bags are thicker, heavier, so you want to make sure that you have it on the right setting. So we will go ahead and do our spaghetti first. Put our oxygen absorber in, and I always put it in last, especially for the idea that you might be cooking in the bag. You don't want to have to dig for your absorber. It's a pretty important idea. So I'm still doing my double seal, one below the notch and one above the notch. See it there? We'll go ahead and do above. And there are the 2 seals. Next we will go ahead and do our apples. Oxygen absorber in. Setting is still at a 7/8, and we will do below the line and then above the line. These impulse sealers are very fast. That was something that I didn't really know when doing it, so I thought I was doing it wrong. The light is on and off pretty quickly, so you have a visual on when to be done, aside from the obvious seal on your bag. What was a very successful cycle with our ingredients for guacamole to come, our fruit and spaghetti for the pantry, and more long-term storage for the future. I'm hoping that in the next video we will be able to do a double cycle and try out that defrost feature. I do realize that I could have done that now, but I would not be awake to see how long it would take and how hot it gets in there. These are all things that I would like to see, but I guess that will be for another video. If you would like to see when that happens, please click subscribe and you will be notified when future videos are set to premiere or post. But until then, I'm going to go get a good night's rest and hope that you are doing well out there, and we will see you in the next video. Bye!